How do I apply for an Emirates ID? In today's world, where globalization is blurring borders, the ability to move freely between countries is becoming increasingly important. One of the key elements of this process is obtaining an identification number or ID. In the UAE, this is called the Emirates ID. But how do you get it? Especially if you are a citizen of the Russian Federation. In this article, we will look at all aspects of this issue. What is an Emirates ID and its necessity? Emirates ID is a universal identification card used in the United Arab Emirates. This is not just an ID card, but also a key to the many services and opportunities in the country. All residents of the UAE, including citizens and foreigners, are required to have an Emirates ID. The Emirates ID card contains a unique identification number that is assigned to each resident of the UAE, and which is used for identification in all public, semi-public and private institutions. This number remains unchanged throughout a person's life, even if they change their resident status or citizenship. Emirates ID is required not only to verify your identity, but also to perform various operations, such as opening a bank account, receiving medical services, registering a car, and much more. Without an Emirates ID, many of these operations become impossible or significantly more complex. Thus, Emirates ID plays a critical role in the life of anyone living in the UAE. It is not just a document, but also an important tool that facilitates access to the many services and opportunities offered in the country. For example, you must have an Emirates ID. Emirates ID Review. The Emirates ID is issued by the Federal Office for Identification and Citizenship of the United Arab Emirates. The card contains the owner's personal data, including name, date of birth, gender, photo, ID number, and expiration date of the card. The card also has a QR code that contains all this data in electronic format. It is important to note that Emirates ID is equipped with state-of-the-art security technologies to protect the owner's personal data. The card has a built-in electronic chip that stores biometric data, such as fingerprints and retinal scans, as well as other sensitive information. This makes Emirates ID one of the most secure ID cards in the world. In addition, the Emirates ID indicates the status of the owner in the UAE, whether a citizen, resident or visitor. This helps the UAE authorities manage migration flows and ensure security and order in the country. In general, Emirates ID is a multifunctional ID card that provides convenience and security for its owners. Meaning and functions of Emirates ID in the United Arab Emirates. Emirates ID plays an important role in the lives of UAE residents. It serves as a universal identity document, and is used to access government and commercial services, including education, healthcare, banking, transportation, and more. In addition, the Emirates ID is required for employment and obtaining a visa. In addition, Emirates ID is used for authorization in the electronic services of the UAE government, allowing citizens and residents to manage their government services online. This includes submitting applications, paying bills, requesting services, and more. The Emirates ID is also used as a travel document within the countries of the Gulf Cooperation Council, GCC, which facilitates travel between these countries. The importance of Emirates ID in the UAE cannot be underestimated. It is an integral part of life in the country, facilitating access to services and opportunities and facilitating interaction with public and private institutions. Advantages of getting an Emirates ID for Russians. For citizens of the Russian Federation who live or plan to move to the UAE, obtaining an Emirates ID can open up many opportunities. First, it facilitates the process of adaptation and integration in the UAE. Secondly, it allows you to access a wide range of services and privileges. Third, It can simplify the process of obtaining a work visa or an investor visa. Emirates ID can also facilitate the process of obtaining health insurance in the UAE, which is a mandatory requirement for all residents. Insurance companies often require an Emirates ID to apply for an insurance policy. In addition, the Emirates ID can be useful for Russians planning to open a business in the UAE. This document can simplify the process of registering a company and obtaining the necessary licenses. Finally, Emirates ID is a universal document recognized by all UAE institutions. This means that instead of carrying several different documents, citizens can simply use their Emirates ID to prove their identity, residency status and other important information. Conditions and requirements for obtaining an Emirates ID. Obtaining an Emirates ID requires meeting certain conditions and requirements. First, the applicant must have a valid visa to reside in the UAE. Secondly, the applicant must provide a set of documents, including a passport, residence documents, a medical certificate, and others. Third, the applicant must complete the application and pay the appropriate fees. It is important to note that an application for an Emirates ID must be submitted within 30 days of entering the UAE. If the application is not submitted during this period, the applicant may be fined. In addition to this, applicants must undergo a medical examination to confirm that they are not infected with certain diseases. This screening usually includes an HIV test, a TB test, and other health checks. Finally, applicants must provide proof of their residency in the UAE. This can be a rental agreement, a utility bill addressed to the applicant, or another document confirming the address of residence. Special features for Russian citizens. For Russian citizens, the process of obtaining an Emirates ID may have some special features. For example, they may require additional documents or transfers, and they may face more stringent residency requirements. However, in general, the process does not differ from the procedure for citizens of other countries. One of the special features is the need to translate some documents into Arabic. All documents submitted for the Emirates ID must be in Arabic or English. If the original documents are in Russian, they must be translated into Arabic or English by a professional translator. In addition, Russian citizens applying for an Emirates ID should note that the process may take some time. It usually takes 2 to 4 weeks from applying to receiving an ID. So it is recommended that you apply as early as possible. Finally, it is worth noting that citizens of the Russian Federation, as well as citizens of other countries, must update their Emirates ID when changing personal information, such as their residential address, health status, etc. This is important to keep the data in the Emirates ID system up to date. Step-by-step guide to getting an Emirates ID. Getting an Emirates ID involves several steps, which we break down into the following steps for ease of understanding. Step 1. Apply. The applicant must complete an ID application in electronic form on the website of the Federal Office for Identification and Citizenship of the United Arab Emirates. The application must be filled out carefully, without errors or typos, and include all the necessary data. Step 2. Approve the application. After submitting the application, it will be reviewed by the competent authorities. If the application is approved, a notification will be sent to the applicant indicating the date and place for submitting biometric data. Saraya from $729,648 Dubai. UAE Marina Cove from $552,687 Dubai. United Arab Emirates Ivy Gardens 2 from $208,184 Dubai. UAE. Dubailand V1 VID Tower from $205,740 Dubai. United Arab Emirates. JVT Evergur 1N house from $270,934 Dubai, UAE. JGC Knightsbridge from $2,150,836 Dubai, United Arab Emirates. MBR Step 3. Submitting your biometric data. The applicant must visit one of the customer service centers to submit biometric data. This includes taking photos and taking fingerprints. The applicant must have a passport and a notification of approval of the application. Step 4. Getting an Emirates ID. After processing the application and biometric data, the ID will be made and sent by mail to the address specified by the applicant. The applicant should check the correctness of all data on the ID and, if errors are found, immediately contact the Federal Office for Identification and Citizenship of the United Arab Emirates. Visa issues and Emirates ID. Visa status is closely related to the Emirates ID. First, a valid visa to reside in the UAE is required to obtain the ID. Secondly, the Emirates ID can make it easier to obtain or extend a visa, as it confirms your resident status. Third, in some cases, having an Emirates ID may be a prerequisite for entering or leaving the country. It is important to note that the Emirates ID does not replace a visa and does not grant the right to enter or stay in the UAE without a valid visa. However, it can serve as additional proof of your resident status when applying for a visa or when crossing the border. In addition, in the event of a change in visa status, e.g., from a work visa to an investor visa or in the case of a UAE citizenship, you will need to update the information in your Emirates ID. This can be done by applying for an update at the UAE Federal Identity and Nationality Authority. Finally, it is worth noting that having an Emirates ID can simplify the process of obtaining a visa to some other countries. Some countries recognize the Emirates ID as proof of stable residency in the UAE, which can be a positive factor when considering a visa application. However, it is always recommended to check the specific requirements with the embassy or consulate of the country you plan to travel to. In general, Emirates ID plays an important role in visa issues and can make life much easier for Russians in the UAE. However, it is important to remember that it does not exempt from the need to comply with visa requirements and migration laws of the UAE. The cost of applying for an Emirates ID varies depending on its validity period. At the moment, the cost is approximately $30 per year of validity. The validity period of the ID can be from 1 to 3 years, depending on the applicant's visa status. After the ID expires, you must renew it. Comparison with other types of IDs and visas in different countries. Emirates ID has many advantages over similar documents in other countries. First, it is a universal identification document that is used to access all government and commercial services in the UAE. Secondly, it facilitates the process of obtaining and renewing a visa. Third, it provides additional privileges, such as access to electronic government services, compared to, for example, a green card in the United States or a blue card in the European Union. Emirates ID offers a wider range of services and privileges. It not only confirms your resident status, but also provides access to banking services, medical care, educational institutions, and other important services. In addition, unlike many other countries, the UAE does not require its residents to annually confirm their status or regularly update their ID. This makes the process of owning and using Emirates ID much more convenient and less expensive compared to similar documents in other countries. Finally, it is important to note that the Emirates ID is recognized by many countries and international organizations, which facilitates travel and international operations for holders of this ID. Success stories. Many foreign nationals have successfully obtained Emirates ID and used it to simplify their lives in the UAE. They confirm that the process of obtaining an ID is simple and quick, and that it does open up many opportunities. Here are some examples. John, a programmer from London, moved to Dubai in 2019. He notes that with Emirates ID he was able to quickly open a bank account, you can rent an apartment, and even get a local driver's license without any problems. Sarah, a French teacher from Paris, has been living in the UAE for more than 5 years. She says Emirates ID has made it easier for her to get health insurance and register for advanced training courses. Marco, an entrepreneur from Milan, uses his Emirates ID to run a business in the UAE. He notes that thanks to ID, he was able to quickly register his company and obtain all the necessary licenses. These stories confirm that Emirates ID is a powerful tool that can make life much easier for Russians in the UAE. Recent changes in UAE legislation. In 2023, there were some changes in UAE legislation regarding Emirates ID. In particular, the procedures for obtaining and renewing an ID have been simplified and new services available to ID holders have been introduced. These changes aim to make the process even more convenient and easy for all UAE residents. Among the key changes, it is worth noting the following. Simplification of the application procedure. You can now apply for an Emirates ID or renew it online, which greatly simplifies the process and saves time. Expanding the list of services. Now you can use Emirates ID to access even more government and commercial services. Introduction of the electronic Emirates ID. In addition to the physical card, you can now get an electronic version of the ID, which you can store on your smartphone. All these changes make Emirates ID an even more convenient and functional tool for living and working in the UAE. Emirates ID plays an important role in the life of anyone living in the UAE. For foreign nationals, it is especially important as ID facilitates access to many services and opportunities in the country. Moreover, the process of obtaining an ID is simple and quick, and it comes at a small cost. Overall, we strongly recommend that all foreign nationals living in or planning to move to the UAE obtain an Emirates ID.